Hello! It's been so long. Oh my goodness. Oh, where to begin? So I think there are two things that are most important to focus on for today. We have Mercury retrograde starting tomorrow, starting the 5th, and we have the new moon happening right now. Where to begin? I think let's focus on the retrograde first. So Mercury will be retrograde in Virgo. Mercury's in Virgo right now. Mars is in Gemini. Jupiter in Gemini. We have Venus is about to go into Virgo. This is a lot of Mercury ruled energy. A lot of potential for overthinking, overanalyzing. On the positive side, there's the potential for communication. I really love two things. I really love Mercury retrograde in general for its ability to slow down. It's a time period, as I always say, and I'll say it every single time Mercury goes retrograde. It's a time to, excuse me, focus on the past, to look to the past conversations, past thoughts, past actions, past relationships, whatever, past in general, and to tie up loose ends over the course of the Mercury retrograde time period, which, by the way, is occurring from tomorrow the 5th until I think about the 28th, something like that. And so it's this time period of focusing on the past in order to make better sense of the present and then be able to move forward into the future. And this is really invaluable because otherwise we're living most of the year, most of our lives. By the way, it is until the 28th, so about the 5th until the 28th. Otherwise, we're living most of our lives, most of the year, not having Mercury retrograde, Mercury moving forward, and thus our minds racing, focusing on new things, new information, new communication, new ideas. We need a time period to buffer and to process and to figure out, okay, what is life? And it's really beautiful how with Mercury retrograde, answers pop up or a way forward pops up in a way that maybe we were wondering even before the Mercury retrograde time period. And it seems very obvious once Mercury retrograde happens, that, it was already there, or maybe something that was already there that I'd forgotten about reappears or has some kind of development since the last time we thought about it or worked on it or whatever it was. So Mercury retrograde is really great for that ability to also go deeper into ourselves and to understand ourselves better. And this is really crucial. All of this is really crucial because this Mercury retrograde time period is occurring with a lot of pressure because Mercury will be opposite Saturn for at least a good portion of it. At least it's starting it. And in general, we're experiencing Venus opposite Saturn. We won't experience Sun opposite Saturn until like the last week of the retrograde or so. But what does this all mean? It means that, let me finish that thought first. It'll be opposite Saturn, opposite Neptune loosely. And also it'll be square Mars and Jupiter and Gemini. So we have a T-square happening with this Mercury retrograde, or certainly for this next month in general, even if Mercury is going to retrograde back into Leo. And the Mercury retrograde starts with being in Virgo regardless. So it's going to have this flavor for all of August. And what does this mean? It means that it's a funny thing because on the one hand, there's a lot of pressure. We'll go into that a little bit deeper in a moment. But on the other hand, all of this energy is mutable. And so there's a lot of potential with that pressure, with that tension that we might feel, trying to solve puzzles, trying to figure things out. There's a lot of potential to be flexible and to figure it out through these different tools that are available, especially Mars and Jupiter conjunct in Gemini. Now, there are always challenges, but one of the great strengths with that combo of energy is to be inventive in understanding, in getting new information, being proactive in figuring out how do I move forward. I need information, and then I'll practice putting that information into practice. That's a wonderful gift that is there for all of us. Now the challenge though, and one could say this is also the challenge with Mercury retrograde, although more so it's going to be the Mars and Jupiter conjunction Gemini. The challenge is just to stay focused. It's to not not get distracted by things that are shiny, things that are new. And I think especially considering with Mercury retrograde, it's not a superstition to say it's not a great time to begin new things, because our minds are on the past. Our minds are focused on what already came before. So starting a new relationship or new project or whatever, unless we were working on it before, it's quite a challenging time, because that's just not where our head's at, generally speaking, and that's not where the energy flow is. We need to, more often than not, if you are feeling inspired to start a new project or whatever, new relationship during this time, it's going to be more so, again, I don't want to generalize, I don't want you to overthink, so it's not like it can't work out, but it's just good to be mindful of when we feel this kind of inspiration to start something new, or maybe even more of an idea, right, to start something new rather than as something as deep as an inspiration, an emotional inspiration. If we have this idea to start something new, we need to be really mindful over the course of this next month, that might be us trying to distract ourselves from what we really need to focus on, the work that we really need to do. It's what I'm saying is we can make progress, but the energy flow is going to be more so for each one of us on making progress of what we've already been working on before. And that's something that's really cool here is, again, we have all this Gemini energy, we have this Virgo energy that's really good at problem solving and thinking through problems, being logical, picking it apart, being very precise, being very grounded, at least the Virgo is. And that could be really helpful, especially because we have this pressure of Saturn in Pisces. So I think that I was doing a reading for a friend the other day, and this came up, and I made a note to make a video about this. This is really important. We've talked about this before, but I think it's especially important over this next month because it's being activated. Saturn and Pisces transit is being activated so much through this Mercury retrograde. So it's going to be playing a major role over the course of the next month, and I would say even over the course of September as well. But I see August as more so the inwards reflection, figuring stuff out period. And then September is the, okay, cool, moving forward. Let's put our understanding into action. Let's do things now, right? August is a little bit more the reflective time period, figuring out who we are, what we're seeking, what we need. That's where the Leo comes in. We'll get to that in a moment. But a big thing here to be mindful of is, so many thoughts. Let me back up. So Saturn in Pisces represents two things. We'll look at the collective thing in a moment. First, on the more personal level, and really they're connected, but on the more personal level, with Saturn and Pisces over the course of the next month, we want to be, and in general, for the next year and a half roughly, especially the next year, because Saturn does go into Aries next year, but then it retrogrades back, and then it's there for a little bit. So it's not until, I think, 2026 where it's definitively Saturn has moved on into Aries. So Neptune and Saturn both are in Pisces. What does this mean? Any astronomical body, like Saturn, Neptune, Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, etc., that is in the region of space known as Pisces, is wrapping up a cycle. It is preparing for a new cycle. It's the resolving period. And here, too, we have that thing. We have that theme of don't begin something new. Focus on what already is and fully resolve it. Take care of it. Wrap up all the loose ends, and then you can move forward. All right. And this is a big deal because for each of us as individuals, of course, this is going on. But this is because it's a transit of Neptune or Saturn, both of them being in Pisces. This is something that's collectively happening. So in each of our lives, it's a little bit different. It's in, this person's 5th house and that person's 12th house. And this, it's going to be on a personal level a little bit different. But there is a vast collective. I always look at the transits of like 50% of it is deeply personal. Okay, where is it in my house? What house is it in my chart rather? And what aspects are it making with my astronomical bodies in my particular chart, right? So 50% personal, 50% collective. We're all experiencing at the same time, right? Saturn is in the relation to the Earth in that region of space. Neptune is in that region of space. So they're both in the region of space known as Pisces, and they're both wrapping up Neptune, I don't know even. It's like a 220-year cycle. I'll look it up while talking. And Saturn is a 30-year cycle. Take to orbit the sun. Neptune. Okay, so Neptune takes about 165 years to orbit the sun. So that's ending of a 165-year cycle that we get to live through. Very cool. And the beginning of a new 165-year cycle that, again, is roughly, it's almost the exact same as Saturn. It's like 2026 where we'll see Neptune definitively move on into Aries. Something like that. It takes a long time anyway. So even if that's not exactly right, that's a good rule of thumb. Now the perfectionist in me is wanting to find out. Let's see. Yeah, basically 2026 when Neptune is there and it moves forward. So anyways, what does this all mean? Is the end of big cycles going on. And this is happening all around the world, and this is really important to keep in mind for this particular time period right now and for the next month, because a lot of the overthinking that can occur with all these energies is freaking out about what's going on out in the world. First of all, that's never in any of our control. That is a collective tide thing. You know, we're all on this wave together. Ideas, actions, experiences, conditions. You know, we're all on spaceship Earth together. And nobody gets to say exactly how everything goes, even if they think they do, or even if they want to, or whatever. That's never the case. So there's a certain relief with that. There's also a certain philosophical need with that. I think a more spiritual need of, okay, I surrender, then it is what it is. On the collective level, who knows what's going to happen? I'm going to do my best, and that's all I can really control. And that's really helpful on the personal level, because then we can zero in on what we can actually control and what actually has by far the greatest impact on our lives is our own thoughts, words, actions, lifestyle. So it can be very tempting in general, but especially for the next month, to focus on what's out of our control out in the world, the shit show that is the human parade that's always going on, but does seem to have a particularly lively season going on. It's pretty wild. We can be free of that by recognizing, okay, I can continue to be informed what's going on, but I'm not going to let my life be dictated by stuff, people, experiences, conditions that are completely out of my control. So that could be really helpful. And part of the lesson in that is with Saturn and Pisces in particular. Saturn and Pisces is this opportunity for all of us to go deeper into our subconscious, our individual subconscious, and to reflect and to heal and to create a better foundation for our conscious mind to connect with our subconscious being. And the greatest challenge for that is fear, is unconscious fear. Maybe we experienced pain or trauma in the past, and perhaps that fear of that happening again is now holding us back in some way, or we haven't completely healed in that way. We haven't completely integrated in that way. And there's infinite room for exploration with the subconscious. And even when we've healed something, it's not so much like locking the door on it and then throwing away the key. It's being consciously aware of that happened, that still informs my life, even if it doesn't have control over my life, you know, ideally speaking, as time goes on. That's the best way to deal with the subconscious. It's to go with the flow of the river of emotions, even when you're like, oh, wow, I'm revisiting this, even though I thought I was done with it, especially in Mercury Retrograde. And revisiting it helps us to move forward. We don't want to get stuck, of course. That's not revisiting it. That's just getting stuck. But making space for our subconscious, making space for our past, for our fears, our pains, our experiences from before, to make sense of them now, making space right here and right now to understand them, to reflect, to meditate. That's essential. It's not only good, of course it's good, but it's essential in order to move forward completely. So I think that's really good to keep in mind for the next year and a half. is to make peace with the subconscious, to make peace with yourself, to make peace with your emotions, make peace with your fears. And making peace isn't necessarily pleasant. It's jumping into the deep end of the pool of the subconscious. Once you get in, it's like, oh, this isn't so bad, right? But you know what it's like jumping into a pool. It's like, and then if you just did it, then it'd be over with. But it's like, So I think that's really good to keep in mind. And what's really great about this next month is all of this energy with the Gemini and Virgo can help us to, and when Mercury retrogrades back into Leo too, it's perfectly fine. Mercury retrograde is the big thing here that allows us to go deeper into our fears and to understand ourselves. And that brings us to the last thing for today, which is, oh, by the way, and I just want to say too, take your time, do all of this at your own pace. Fear is the greatest challenge of the human condition, I think, more so than pain, because fear is its own form of pain, and is there even when the pain is gone. So take your time, don't rush, even though it seems like it's so easy. It's so much easier said than done. So take your time, be gentle with yourself, while still, I encourage you, while still being brave to seek out what is going on in the subconscious over the course of the next year and a half, and over the course of this next month in particular. But yeah, take your time. Lastly, I think all this Leo energy is really a great opportunity, like it always is every year, but especially when Mercury does retrograde back into Leo too. It's a great opportunity for us to get more in touch with our inner child. Fire energy in general is our inner child. And to understand at a very basic level, listening to our heart. By the way, Mercury retrograde, it looks like the 15th of August. So it'll be there for roughly, it'll be there past Mercury going direct too on the 28th. It's going to be there for actually quite a while. Interesting. Very cool. Into the first week of September, looks like, something like that. Anyways, Leo again is our inner child, and I was born with a lot of Leo natally, rising Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and throughout my entire life, my heart has been a grounding force. Leo is fixed fire. My heart has guided me when my mind had no fucking clue what was happening or why or how to get through it or whatever. And while I was feeling deeply down about things, this is more so in childhood and young adulthood, my heart, the Leo energy, was really what helped guide me, because it simplified everything and it helped me focus on the positive that I felt within myself, the positive emotion of this is why I live. I think Leo is, out of all of the energies, the most that is focused on play. And so I feel like that's something that's really valuable at this time, is how do we get our inner child to come out? How do we get to be our inner child, regardless of our age, and play? And whether it's, I think career especially, that's so important to figure out what feels like play and is not actually work. And it takes time to be able to even set up that situation sometimes, especially for a rising Leo like me with midheaven Taurus. But regardless, I think that's a worthwhile goal for everybody, is how do I make my work play, or more like play? That's really important. But not just work, just in general, it can be very confusing. We have so much information happening at this time, so much communication. Listening to our hearts really helps to sift through all of that information and to figure out, okay, what is important for me to be thinking about? What do I need to know? How do I move forward? What do I need to learn in order to have more play in my life, to have more love, more just radiant sunlight from my heart? How do I get more in touch with myself? And it's interesting because there's a certain amount of thinking for sure, especially during this kind of time period with Mercury Virgo and Mars and Jupiter and Gemini. There's a certain amount of thinking about how do we connect with our heart, sure, and getting more information and learning more about ourselves. I definitely encourage that. That's a huge part of this. But a lot of it is just simpler than that. It's just getting right to it. How do you feel? And that's a good compass in general, but especially this time period with Mercury retrograde. Again, it's a beautiful opportunity for us to go deeper into ourselves and to understand what's going on within ourselves at a deeper level. And especially with all this Leo. So make it really simple. Just ask yourself, what is my heart telling me? What do I need? Who am I? What do I need to do with my life? And from there, we can figure out how to put that heartfelt knowledge into a plan of action, and then carry on with that plan of action September and onwards. Or even right now, but especially September and onwards. So again, a lot of August is going to be asking these questions, and then we kind of figure it out near the end of the retrograde period at the end of August, and then throughout September, or at least that's, I think, going to be the flow for a lot of people, if not most people. Right. One last thing. So, Mars is in Gemini, conjunct Jupiter, as we were saying. It's very easy to be impatient with these energies, especially with all the Leo, to cause drama, to say things that you later deeply regret. So take your time with these energies. Take a breath. Seems like you need to respond right away. But during this kind of time period, how do I put this into words? Patience is rewarded by not being so twitchy and nervous and freaking out. And this is coming from a Gemini, Mercury, Gemini. Jupiter and Mars are directly conjunct my Sun and my Mercury. So, in general, I'm quite high strung in a sense. I'm always thinking and whatever. There's so much benefit from just slowing down, breathing, and really focusing on what's essential. Again, essential information, essential learning, essential path. What is essential to my heart? Simplify things. I cannot say it enough. Throughout this time period in general, but especially this next month. Throughout this time period is in the next year, because Jupiter will be in Gemini for a year. But Mars will continue to be conjunct Jupiter for about 4 months, but basically a month, basically August. And then September as well, we have a lot of Mercury ruled stuff. So simplify, slow down. Take your time. And don't think too much. Focus on your heart in general, but especially over the course of this next month. I think that's everything. As always, I'm doing readings. Info in the about section of this YouTube video to book a reading with me. And if you have questions about readings, feel free. Love doing readings. I've done readings for, professionally 11 and a half years. Yeah, 11 and a half years. It's a big, and an update on the book. I feel like subconsciously I've been ashamed that I've not finished it. Know that it is not under my control. I wish I could just force myself to do it, but a book is like a song. It's like a work of art. You have to be inspired to do it. Now, on the other side of things, there is a certain amount of just planning and organization. But honestly, in the big scheme of things, it's just been timing. Anyways, I say all that to say, I feel really strongly. I really hope, because I would like to get this done. But honestly, logically speaking, I think it's going to be done this fall, early winter. For the last 2.5 years or 2 years or whatever, I've been focused on about 40,000 words. And I figured out maybe a month and a half ago what I was going to do with 30,000. Basically that it just wasn't meant to be in the book. And I cannot exaggerate. I thought about this so much. And then I realized in the last even week and a half that there's an additional 15,000 words or so that is also not meant to be in the book. It all just makes the book tighter. It makes it more focused. And that information, it is what it is. So, yes, I have edited it once through. My awesome editor, she sent me notes. So I'm going to go through with her notes, and then I'm just going to wrap it up. I'm going to finish the edit over the course of this fall and early winter. That's certainly the plan. Again, I can't control God's timing for everything, but I want it to be done because there's some really good stuff that I want to share, and I know a lot of people have been asking about it, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the patience of people who pre-ordered it so very much, because you've been so much more patient than I realized that. I didn't realize that's why I was asking of you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even asked for pre-orders. So I appreciate that truly, sincerely, so much. And yeah, I tend to have 2 writing seasons, January through April, through the end of April, and then about September onwards. So we do have the Mercury Retrograde time period, but hey, maybe that's when I'll be getting back into the book. I started the book August 28th, 2021. It's crazy. And I started writing 2 years before that, the previous series. So this is, oh my gosh, such a long time coming. It'll be 5 years I started writing, and I'm really looking forward to finishing that and then moving on with my life and finally giving people what they asked for. So yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. I can't control it, but I'm looking at September. That's usually when the juices start flowing for editing and writing, and that's my focus. I'm not starting any other writing project till that book is done and out, and to everybody who pre-ordered it and anybody else who wants it. So that's the plan with that. Thank you again for being patient. Yeah. But yeah, I know I haven't done as many transit videos because I've just been almost like, I have been ashamed because I didn't finish it. It's like, oh, how dare I show my face? But, then that's not fair for like people who rely on the transit videos. And so I need to show up more, but, I can only show up to the best of my ability, and again, God's timing. But yeah, I really do feel I'm in the last leg of it. That's what's so crazy. I'm in the last like 15% of the book being done. I've already written like 150,000 words, but it's shortened to like 110,000 words after the edit. Yeah, so I just have to go through even the last part with the notes. So I will be doing that though. It's on my radar. Anyways, infinite love to you, my friends. Another 30-minute video because it's been too long. Namaste. Peace.